I believe that the only social contract where a person should have power over another person's life is served by the learned judge who should see beyond anything which may differentiate us and who should see only what equates us under the law. Also, the physician who should care for the fragility of humanity with dignity and respect, trained to do so, unassuaged by circumstance and challenged to strive for the preservation of human life. The ethical driver behind the judge and the physician re-emerges from time to time in almost every other role in society. The ethics of the freedom of the individual to live without domination and unnecessary hindrances or interferences. That the quality and duration of their life must be upheld above all else. Where are these ethics among the decision makers of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander First Nations Australians across history? Legally baseless in its etymological praxis and agenda, a truth from history often untold is that the proclamation of Terra Nullius was conceived to directly obstruct the first attempt at a treaty between British migrants and First Nations Australians pre-Federation, the Bateman Treaty. For those around the world who may be listening and who do not understand, Australia remains to this day a constitutional monarchy. We, the Australian people, have no directly elected executive power, and His Majesty King Charles III is Australia's head of state as heir successor to the late Queen Elizabeth II. This is so because of the federation of former Crown colonies, now states and territories of the Commonwealth of Australia from 1901. Australia became a nation in the modern world, yet in this contemporary global situation, objectively not without social, economic and security risks to Australians daily, we remain constitutionally bound to the United Kingdom, and the Crown remains the law in our courts. It adorns the shoulders of our military personnel and our police, because in no mere symbolic way at all, the Crown reigns with supreme constitutional authority over all separations of government powers, as well as other extensions of the state, through an inherited privilege, and not by the merit of any elected person in Australia. The architects of the Commonwealth Constitution of 1901 specifically excluded Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander First Nations Australians at the very act of federation. Voiceless in our own lands for generations, I'm now calling on First Nations Australians and our allies to speak up, to have a voice in our families, our communities, and our schools, and our workplaces, until such a time may come when we have a real voice to government. The closest we've gotten to the Crown acknowledging us was on the date of my 34th birthday, March 6. On this day, I co-hosted Global Citizen with Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, who apologised to First Nations Australians and offered an acknowledgement of country after I spoke the following words. I'm inviting everybody around the world to hear our voice. We continue to call for constitutional change, structural constitutional reform that can empower our people. For as long as the crown of Terra Nullius remains in our constitution, we cannot advance or move forward as a nation. Now the First Nations voice has been defeated, it is apparent that we, the Australian people, must have a declaration of independence from the Crown if we are to make the necessary steps to revisit and deliver the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full across the next decade. I also believe that we as one people can take a strong stand against the injustice in a hereditary system of government and its notion of invested power. The overwhelming truth to the last of the monarchists who hold close to an imitation aristocracy in Australia is this: the world has consistently discarded the hair shirt of monarchy and its totalitarian cousin, embracing instead the meritocracy and freedom of direct democracy, which Daniel also just spoke about. Nations are built on these principles and they stand the test of time. These republics exist among our strongest allies, among other Commonwealth nations, and within our own Indo-Pacific region. I have no time for reactive rhetoric, and I refuse to allow it to permeate the way forward any longer. Reactive arguments are conceived to shut down debate and to further ensure that no one else gets a say. Quite simply, the Australian Crown is an arbitrary anachronism out of place among a nation which has never had a serious landed aristocracy to uphold it. Everything established above and without the consent of Australian citizens can easily stand unchallenged. and the Crown itself has no regard for our satisfaction with its own system of invested power, which many of the British royal family have flouted onerously and continue to face international scrutiny for today. I remain immensely displeased with what students in our nation's schools and universities are compelled to learn when they study the Constitution, that they cannot aspire to be head of state, while the document's preamble exists in its current form. Australian students learn that power is held by one person who must be of a particular race, family, higher social class, and Protestant Christian religion. Those words in the preambulatory material of the Commonwealth Constitution enact a supreme legal jurisprudence, which rules with finality in the Judicial High Court of Australia. Too many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander First Nations Australians are still dying of diseases which are completely preventable, and many have a shorter life expectancy than other Australians. This isn't symbolism, it's real. Some around the world are not remotely aware that His Majesty King Charles III is head of state by birthright. Governors General parade ornately in an inconsequential role somewhere between the interests of the Prime Minister who appoints them and the sovereign they are supposed to be representing, a royal proxy in what some see as an Antipodean outpost rather than a sovereign independent nation. The only people Australians vote for in their Commonwealth elections, apart from members of Parliament, are Australian senators. If Australia is to progress as a nation, there must be sovereignty and self-determination among all the Australian people, and the argument that Australians should not govern themselves is one I have never had any entertainment for. A directly elected president as a first among equals has merit among those who such a leader serves. A sovereign who rules by birthright from a foreign nation can never have the power nor the respect to advance Australia. Thank you.